Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Thursday, September the 20th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Your second daily dose of happy for the day, and we hope your day is going as well as mine's going. Mine's been a nice, comfortable day, which is kind of unusual around here. I'm enjoying the fact that the stress level is relatively low and the weather is relatively nice and comfortable. We got the house open. It's like, this is a good day. I mean, it's not like I even have to work for this one. This is a good day. How's your day going, Wendy?
My day is going awesome. It's been very lazy. I've gotten a lot of sleep, a lot of contemplation.
Oh, nice.
And just really focusing on the joy of my life.
That's a really great thing. That's fabulous. Well done. Congratulations. We're done with the show. Okay.
Well, why don't we just stay on just to see if we can help bring some other people into the same joy.
Oh, that's right. We're supposed to do that too. I forgot. Oh, how could I have forgotten? Oh, yes. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, that's one of the main reasons we do this show, because we want everybody to be in that better feeling place. And it's one of the motivations. I think it is for you too. It's one of my biggest motivations for doing the podcast. I mean, yes, I love doing it. But the idea of being able to help as many listeners as possible and bring more listeners in to help them and getting everybody into a higher vibrational state, whoa, that's really appealing. That's like super appealing.
So for those that are interested in getting a piece of inspiration or getting encouraged to feel better, stay tuned. Hang on, hang with us for the rest of the hour, and hopefully you'll receive something that will make you really glad that you did.
That's true. And it's going to be an interesting hour. I don't know what else to call it, because we're taking on one of those challenging topics, one of the topics that you don't normally hear much about when you're talking to somebody about law of attraction. But of course, we don't shy away from stuff like that. We go after the tough stuff, because we're going to be talking about victimization. And that's not one of those really pleasant ideas, but it is something that we have to understand how to avoid, isn't it? If we're to, really attract the stuff that we want to attract into our lives.
Well, we have to at least avoid allowing ourselves to own being a victim.
Yes, that's what I mean. I don't mean avoid the subject. You're right, exactly. It's one of those things that's also hard to describe, too. This is what we're trying to do here today, folks. But
well, and, this came as a follow-up to what we were talking about on Tuesday. And I know I had ended the show by talking about somebody that we had taken into our home,
right,
who was a friend of ours, and who came to us because, or in other words, he was willing to come and stay with us because we were putting a roof over his head and food in his mouth and giving him kind of a respite from his life. But it was kind of with the understanding, and we did verbalize this, it was with the understanding that he would be open to receiving some new information, because as a life coach, this is what I have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I could help him go through some personal transformation so that he could actually improve the quality of his life, so that he could exit our home better than when he came.
Yeah, which is a phenomenal offer.
And over the course of maybe 5 years, he came and stayed with us twice because he was in a really desperate, down and out kind of situation. And the second one ended with him telling me he didn't respect what I did. He didn't even believe in it. He thought it was stupid. And based on that, I said, then there's no reason for you to stay here. You can leave now. And he did. Within the next 15 minutes, he packed his stuff up and he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what caused you to, say, hey, let's follow up on this on our Thursday call.
Yeah.
So I just thought I'd set that up with, that was the background for where we are today.
Well, I'm glad you did, because when that little bit of story was, I'm not sure if it was done, but when we got that far in the story on Tuesday, it really nailed home for me just there are so many ways that we set ourselves up in life. I mean, he had particularly demonstrated it. He set himself up. I mean, he did it deliberately. I mean, it's pretty clear that he was kind of gaming the system a bit to have a place to stay for a while. And then finally his bluff got called and he was no longer able to game the system anymore.
True.
And I've known people like that. I think all of us have known people who behave that way, who think that way. And it's one of those things that's both perplexing and of concern and just plain startling. Like, how do you live that way, first of all? And if you're dealing with somebody like that, how do you deal with somebody like that? Because you certainly don't want to get kind of trapped into that kind of situation where you're helping somebody and you find out he doesn't really want to be helped. He just wants a free lunch.
Hmm. Well, and just to kind of reiterate a little bit of what I said on Tuesday, what came out of that experience for my husband and I after the fact was a very new, clear awareness that not everybody wants to feel better.
Yeah.
On the surface, it appears that everyone wants to feel better. And even on the surface, he said he wanted something better. But I truly believe that our behaviors are bigger indicators of what we really desire.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, maybe that's not even fair, because I think what we really do, we all desire goodness. And that's what, even unconsciously, we send rockets of desires, out into the universe saying we really want something better. But if we don't ever focus on the better, if we don't really focus on how we really want our life to be, then the universe cannot send it to us. It's out there, it's available, but the universe can't send it to us.
I think that's true. I think it's also true though that there are some people who really, well, actually, I would say almost everybody at one point or another in their lives, if they're doing something or behaving in a certain way that is contrary to their own greater intentions, so to speak, their behavior still represents what they're thinking. It represents what they're feeling.
Definitely.
So I mean, there is that part of it. It's a big chunk of the whole picture.
Well, and that kind of causes me to want to clarify the idea that what we desire consciously may be different than what we desire under the surface, in the unknown, in the unaware part of us.
Right.
And reconciling the two is found by getting in connection with our feelings, because our feelings will help us with that gap when one part of us wants something and another part of us seems to be undermining it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably for a little bit of a rabbit trail that either we can do at another time or later in this conversation.
Okay, well, we'll make a note on that one. So let's go back to what you were saying. I mean, how do you want to attack this subject, so to speak? Because this one has a lot of different possible paths to go on.
Well, you were the one who wanted to follow up, and I have a feeling in this arena, because we've kind of talked on this subject before, kind of have a specific way you perceive the collective consciousness thinks on this subject. So can you take it and start?
Well, I'm not sure if I know how the collective consciousness thinks about it. I know how I think about it. And
well, let's start there.
Yeah. I mean, I know I have known people in my life who behave that way. And they can be, there have even been situations where they've been relatively close. And it's been confusing.
To you?
Close to me, close to family, close to people I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, fairly close to home in a sense. And
so outline what that looks like from your perspective.
Oh, geez. If I were kind of describing a generic person, it would be somebody who, let's see, let's describe it from like a social perspective, the way we tend to generally look at people. It's somebody who would be described as a ne'er-do-well, can't really hold a job very often, often has some sort of a substance abuse situation, often they'll get themselves into trouble one way or another, either in a small degree or a large degree, either criminally or just in terms of relationships with family or friends or whatever. I mean, it's the person who is the consummate trouble, the consummate problem. The one who seems to have trouble accepting responsibility for their own lives, and they're the kind who often will just not be able to hold down a job, and they'll insinuate their way with somebody in order to have a place to live, and it's like this. It's almost like it's almost an underground way of living. Basically getting by on the graces of others to whatever degree you can do that. That's the kind of person that I'm talking about, and I've known a few like that, and they perplex me. Because I don't understand why anyone would want to live that way, first of all. And yet, having conversed with some of them, they seem to like it. And I don't understand it.
Well, I believe that some people in the category that you've just described thrive on the drama. They thrive on the thrill and really the exhilaration of the unknown.
Hmm.
And they like to cause waves, both in their life and others, because there is, you know, you and I might this, but for them, there's a thrill in that. It's like going to the amusement park every day and they can't get enough of it,
Wow.
and even though that's not the way I think, and I know it's not the way you think, um, I don't choose to judge them anymore, because if that's the life that they find fun, go for it.
Hmm.
Like, just as an example, I know that it had come to my attention through the news, or through, I even think Oprah did an episode on this one about homelessness. There truly are some people that would prefer to be homeless because they feel such a sense of freedom. That's not how I experience freedom, but that's how they experience freedom. And so even when they get the opportunity to live in a house, live in a shelter that has walls and a roof, um, in a short period of time, they create circumstances for that situation to be taken from them, because homelessness really is their choice.
And the interesting question for me there is, when they create those circumstances, are they doing it consciously? Or is it just because they have a behavior pattern that just kind of plays its way out and they don't really know it's going to go that way, but it does?
I think it's both. I know the one story I'm thinking of, the person was being interviewed and he said, I would so prefer to live without a shelter, because I do love the freedom and I love the variety that I experience every day.
Hmm.
And there was more to it, but more conversation. But that was what I took away from it. And I went, wow, it is so fascinating how people think so differently in
Yeah.
life,
Oh, yeah. Very
you
differently.
know. But in terms of victimization, well, there are those who we know have been, in a sense, victimized because we see the outward crime or abuse that has been bestowed upon them.
Right.
Um, but I think the victimization you're talking about is somebody who wants something better than what they're living, but they're kind of in a cyclical trap where they can't get themselves out of feeling as though they've been made the victim.
That's certainly
And
one kind. Yeah. That, I mean, I would say that actually, from my viewpoint, I'm seeing like a range of victimizations. In fact, the interesting part from a law of attraction perspective is how, when you have person A who has some degree of what we're talking about here as mixed in with their personality, and then they interact with persons B, C, D, and E, those persons B, C, and D, and E can also, in a sense, become victims in the way they interact, or they can treat that person as a victim. Or there are a number of different ways that victimization comes to the fore because of the relationships that that kind of person tends to have in their life. So it's not just one particular kind; it's like all the kinds that kind of feed off of each other.
well, and bottom line, to feel as though you're a victim, I believe it comes down to one thing, which is you choose to relinquish being the owner of your life and taking responsibility for not only what you do, but how you think, which in turn is how you vibrate. And that's what law of attraction responds to.
So that person who was interviewed on TV, you think that even though he was expressing his vision of what it is to be free, he was relinquishing control of his life?
Um, what do you mean relinquishing control?
Well, I was trying to use the phrasing that you used. Maybe I didn't say it
I
properly.
know.
Um,
Okay.
and I think I'm
Do I,
asking to
in
find
other words,
out.
do I
I'm
think,
trying to find out what you think. Actually, I'm trying to get to where you're getting to with
okay.
it.
So with the guy on TV, are you asking, do I think that he's being responsible for his life? I'd say yes.
That's certainly part of the question. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that he is choosing the life that he lives consciously, with deliberateness. That
D-
even though you and I might see homelessness as not the way we want to live, he may not know that there's another way that he can not be homeless and still have freedom. But
so,
I believe from, what I saw in that one small, situation with one individual, what I heard was, if he had a choice to have a house or be homeless, he felt there was more freedom, which was his huge value, to be found in being homeless, because he thought that, his idea was if you live in a house, you have to have a job or you have to find a way to create some kind of substantial income to keep paying the rent or the mortgage. And he found that to be a rat trap, just, like the hamster wheel. Like to him, he thought a job was not being free. Paying bills to him was not being free. And so this was all, based on his viewpoint. And, I don't think there's anyone here who can truly judge him anyone can judge him, but I don't judge him for the fact that he's going after what he desires, which is freedom, and he's living it.
So do you see him as being, let's ask two questions here. First, do you think he sees himself as a victim? And second of all, do you see him as being a subconscious victim without realizing it?
One, I don't think he sees himself as a victim. And no, I don't think unconsciously he's a victim either.
Okay.
The fact that he's very aware of what he's choosing and he's enjoying it and he feels happiness in his life, why would he want to do anything different? I mean, most of us are so desiring the feeling of freedom to experience that emotion on a regular basis, and he already has it. He just found it through a vehicle that most of us would abhor. Most of us would find disgusting or distasteful or like no way on earth, or we would feel like we were in hell if we were living in those circumstances.
Right.
But here's a man who truly found joy in it. He loves to talk to people. He was a people person, by begging for money. He got to connect with people every day. He actually saw the goodness in humanity because of all the people that were contributing to his lifestyle. And he wasn't hungry. He was able to collect enough funds during the day to eat every single day. That was something he enjoyed, that process.
So that leads me to the next question in my mind, which is, okay, if he doesn't see himself as a victim and you're saying, no, you don't think even subconsciously he's a victim, then what does it say about the rest of, or not the rest, but those parts of society that sees him as a victim of his poverty and of his homelessness and so forth? How does that all fit into the picture?
Well, that's their judgment. That's their lack of acceptance that people have choice. That's their projection that he should want what they want. And it actually causes the person who has that judgment to feel bad. Judgment never feels good.
And by judgment, I want to make sure I clarify here. I think most people probably understand what you mean by judgment. I have a slightly different definition for most people, so I want to clarify. The judgment here, does that include some level of blame or guilt or something along that line?
No, I look at judgment as when somebody judges this man for the lifestyle that he has chosen and the way he's gone about choosing it, they are saying he is wrong and they know something different and better. And when we use our opinion to say someone else is wrong, that to me is judgment.
Okay. So,
and I look at this man's choice and go, it's neither wrong nor right. If it makes him happy, who am I to say there's anything wrong in it?
Okay. I'm stumbling here because I'm trying to digest what you're saying and totally grok it, as Robert Heinlein would say.
Have I taken you down a moral dilemma?
No, not so much a moral dilemma, more like a verbal dilemma. I'm trying to sort the words out so that I understand what your meaning is. I think what you're telling me is that when people are looking at him and looking at what his situation is unfavorably and thinking that he should be in something else entirely, their judgment, as you call it, as you term it, is, I think you're saying their judgment is tinted by some sort of a guilt or blame thing, but it doesn't need to be, or it shouldn't be. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. I'm not sure if I'm framing what you're saying correctly.
I don't know that guilt or blame has anything to do with it. What I am saying is that anybody who looks at his scenario and has the opinion that what he's doing is living in a way that is wrong or inappropriate or bad, that individual is making themselves not feel good when they're thinking that thought. And therefore, it's up to the individual who's placing the judgment on the homeless man. That's their issue. That's their business. It's
So,
not about him.
so let me
He doesn't need to change what he's doing for them to feel better.
so let me clarify a little further here, because you did describe this hypothetical viewpoint as being that his situation is bad or wrong. That doesn't include some element of blame or guilt or some sort of negative emotion attached to it. That's where I'm tripping up.
Well, if it, I don't even know where that's coming from. So explain where the blame or guilt would be.
Well,
Whose it
look,
is and what does that look like?
I don't know specifically whose it is. I'm just saying that in general, whenever we use the term bad or wrong, there's usually some kind of a moral judgment attached to that. And a moral judgment usually has some kind of negative emotion attached to it. And that's why it sounds like you're separating them, and I'm not quite understanding why you're separating them.
Separating what?
Separating the negative emotion from the judgment of wrongness or badness.
I didn't separate those. I said that when somebody does view somebody as bad or wrong, there is a negative feeling that's associated with that.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, that's where I was completely missing it. So, okay.
Yeah, but I'm not saying it has to be blame or it has to be guilt. I don't know what the negative feeling is. I just know it's negative.
Oh, no, I was just I was listing those as possible negative emotions. But my point is it was a negative emotion of some kind.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, I have someone in my family who, if they saw a homeless person who was on the side of the road begging for money, their judgment would be, go get a job. That's what they would be thinking as they see that man as their, because we all have experienced it where we're driving in our car, we come to a red light, and there's a man with a cardboard sign.
Mm-hmm.
Saying who knows what, but, it might say, I'm a vet, hey, can you help me? It could say, God bless you. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But bottom line, I have a family member who every time they would see a homeless man or anyone begging for money, there would be a judgment of that's the wrong thing to do. You are not being a good citizen.
Mm.
And I know that when my family member has that thought, it makes that person in my family kind of irate. So irate is not feeling good.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I look at that as like, that's my family member's problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that person's thinking. That's how that person is choosing to focus their attention. But, the man on the side of the street who is out in Texas in 100-degree weather and is perspiring and is holding up his sign, he might be happy as a lark. He might love the heat. He might love getting out every day and doing this. I don't know. But it's not my job to decide whether what he's doing is appropriate or not. I'm staying in my lane. I'm sticking with my thing. And I have a choice every time I meet someone who's homeless. Do I choose to help support their lifestyle by giving them money or not? And there are times I have, and it has felt really good. And there are times I haven't, and it's felt really good.
It's interesting because my own experience when I encounter people like that is discomfort no matter what I do. And I'm not even sure I can tell you why I feel the discomfort.
I can.
Okay, tell me. Let me hear it.
Whatever you are thinking at that time is causing the discomfort.
Okay.
Negative feelings always come from thoughts that you're thinking that are not the same as how your inner being thinks.
Okay, well, that much I agree and I understand that. That doesn't mean I understand why it is that I'm disagreeing with my inner being. That's what I'm alluding to. I'm alluding to the fact that
the clarity is you don't know specifically what you're thinking.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know where that feeling is coming from. I can tell you that there does at times feel like there's a bunch of factors in place, like there's a societal expectation, and then there's how I would feel about it, and then there's how somebody I'm with feels about it, and there's this whole mishmash of different influences going on, and there's a part of me that's saying, I don't know which way I want to feel about this, but none of them feel good.
So what I heard you just say is that you are looking to the peanut gallery that's inside your head, occupying space, and they're all telling you all their opinions, and you're looking to them to determine how to make a decision whether to help this homeless man or not, or the person with the sign.
I
Is that
look
right?
in some ways, I do look to them, to that peanut gallery, because, and this goes back to my original question and my original supposition, I don't know what to think about them. I don't know what to think about what they're experiencing. I know I wouldn't like it myself, but I really don't know what to think about them. I mean, you say that they're enjoying it. You say that they're feeling a sense of freedom. I don't even know what to think about that.
No. I'm not saying they are. I'm saying that one particular man in the
Well, that one particular man, yes, okay, yes. Sorry.
I don't know how the rest of them are.
Sorry, I didn't mean I painted too broad a brush, but my point is, I mean, you did see that much. When I look at any person like that, I am just plain perplexed. I don't know what to do with it.
Well, so here's something, and it kind of gets us back to victimhood a little bit. I tend to encounter people who are asking for handouts at the gas station, at least. And I think maybe that's a nicer way in Texas to do it, only because you're under a little bit of shelter. That's my opinion. But anyway, I've had people ask me, for help at gas stations, and sometimes they have a long story that they want to tell me, and it all ends up with they need to put gas in their gas tank to get home or to get to someplace. And there's some times that, I use my my emotional guidance system. I use my intuition. I use the feeling I have from inside. I kind of tap into who they are and what they're telling me. And does their story feel congruent with what the vibe is that I sense from them while they're telling their story? Okay. Is that making sense so far?
Yeah, I think I kind of do the same thing.
Okay. Because I believe that true communication is where we are completely congruent in what we're saying and what we're really thinking while we're saying it. And that's kind of like a con artist is thinking one thing, but they're telling you another. And people who get easily conned by a con artist, it's because they're not being discerning as far as the person's communication. But someone who doesn't get conned and can call them on it and go, you're a con, and they walk away, it's because they recognize there's something that doesn't feel right about what he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and yet I can also say, I can say honestly that there have been times where I guess I've been conned. Maybe I'm gullible or whatever. But there have been times where I thought that somebody who was in the exact situation you're talking about, they got a cardboard sign, they're asking for help. And there have been times where everything seemed congruent to me. And so I would give them help. And then I found out later on, because I know somebody who's been very much in that situation, and he knows all those people. Every single one of them that I've ever run into, he can tell me, oh, yeah, I know who that is. That person's addicted to drugs. That person's a gambler.
But the thing that's most important, Walt, is not whether he was a con or not. It was how you felt when you gave to them. If it made you feel good, that's the end of the story. And it doesn't matter if they're a con or not. It's all about you. Did it feel good?
Oh, I think it means more. I think there's more to it than that, actually. Because if
the goal in life is to feel happy, does it really matter how you get there?
No, it doesn't matter how you get there. It does matter, though, if you get there. So let me finish my thought, and you'll see what I mean. There have been times where I have helped somebody out. It felt good at that moment, and that was a good thing. And then later on, I found out that what I actually did without realizing it was like feed an addict the ability to become more of an addict. And I know that's...
And what did you think about that?
But before I even get to what I think about it, let me frame it. And I understand that that's his or her choice. That's up to them entirely. But there's also a part of me that says, I don't really want to feel somebody. I don't really want to feed that in somebody else. So how did it feel to me? It didn't feel good to me. So
that was your thought. I don't want to help feed somebody's addiction.
And I came to that feeling after I had the feeling that I felt good helping them, and learned later on that what I really did didn't feel good. So it felt good early on, and later on it didn't feel good. And that's why I'm saying that it's not enough to just say what happened in that instant. There's also what happened later on. When I look at the whole thing as a combination, it's like, Well, I felt sort of good, but I also didn't feel so good.
Okay, and so you didn't reframe the it doesn't feel good one? You just let it stand as that really sucked because I don't want to help feed someone's addiction and that's what he did?
I don't remember honestly if I reframed it or not.
Well, I know you didn't because you expressed it. Yeah, I mean, I can still hear in the sound of your voice that was not something that made you feel good.
Right.
Okay. So the reason I say what I did is because I've had that happen before. And then I've reframed it. And well, I didn't know. But if I can think back to, were there any signs that I missed? Yeah, there were. And what were they? And then I would tell myself them. I'm like, okay, well, this gives me new information so that the next time something like this comes up, I'll be better prepared. But I don't make myself wrong or feel bad that he conned me.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that I felt bad because he conned me or she conned me. I don't think that's why I'm feeling bad. And I
Why
don't
do you
even
feel bad?
I don't even think of it as feeling bad. I just think of it as feeling uncomfortable. Bad to me is more powerful than what I'm actually feeling. I'm just feeling discomfort, and in
You
that
felt negative.
it was a negative feeling. Yes,
Okay.
it just wasn't a severely negative one. It's not like one that was hanging over my head. Oh my God, I'm going to sweat this one for the next week. It wasn't like that. It was over in a moment. And I let it go in a moment. I didn't even give it any more thought after that. But I did experience it, and I don't really want to continue to experience those. So, like you said, I can try to learn from it. I can try to pay attention and see if I'm picking up the right vibe next time. Did I miss something or whatever? But by the same token, I don't really even want to have to go down that route. I mean, to me, talk about law of attraction. I figure the more that I'm focusing on that, the more I'm going to get those opportunities. I don't really want those opportunities. That's really not what I want to be part of my life. So I guess I could focus on, well, okay, how can I reframe it? How can I feel better about it? How can I learn from it? And there's some value to that, certainly. I mean, it always is good to be feeling better. But by the same token, I also want to take whatever steps I can to remove that experience because I just don't even want the experience.
So your desire is based on something you do not want.
Yes. Well, most are.
And no, they're not all. That may be how how the desire is created, but you're right
Well,
now
okay, all
focusing
right.
on what you're
That's
saying, how
mincing,
you
but
expressed
okay.
it is, here's something I do not want.
Yes.
And so from a law of attraction perspective, that's what you have focused that you do not want is what you're actually going to create.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to avoid doing, actually. I'm trying to avoid continuing
Right.
to create it.
So whenever you are more focused on what you want to avoid, you
Mm-hmm.
get more of what you want to avoid.
Yes, I understand that.
So the reframe is, what is it you desire instead?
Yeah, that's a good question. And if I'm going to answer that one, it's going to be something along the lines of I want to. How do you describe that? How do you describe an absence? I don't know how to do that.
Well, you don't describe the absence, but what if somebody comes to me panhandling, I want to feel good in the presence of someone who panhandles. So I want to somehow take an action or a non-action that I can feel good about. I want to think in a positive way that will allow me to feel good, whatever that may be.
Okay, well,
Isn't that what you really want?
yeah, I guess so. It doesn't actually, honestly, it doesn't quite feel right, but it's like in the right direction.
Okay, so what's missing? What is it you really want? Without focusing on what you want to avoid. What is it you really want? Do you want world peace?
Well, sure, yeah, you're going to hand it out. I'm not sure that actually fits, but yeah, sure, I'll take it. It's kind of like what we were talking about the other day. It's like what we talked about the other day. We talked about how you have to really want something in order to attract it successfully with consistency. Right. You have to really want it. And as I sit here asking myself, what do I want? I'm not sure what I really want. I can't say that I have a strong want in any clear direction for me. I mean, yeah, I guess in general, I have the wish of feeling good whenever a situation like that happens. But honestly, my greater wish is I can feel good without it happening. And I know that's not an accurate way to describe what it is I really want, but I'm not sure how else to get to where I'm trying to describe. I would rather live in a situation where I just don't even deal with that situation.
And I understand that. And the truth is, you cannot create that from where you are right now.
I understand that. That much I'm clear on.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is a much more, I believe, powerful vibrational position to feel okay with anything that comes your way, knowing that you can feel good regardless of what's going on in someone else's life. That to me is a very powerful position because I have such a level of control over my responses to the things that happen in life that something really unpleasant can be in front of me and I don't lose my joy.
That's
And
certainly
so,
that's certainly the ideal.
okay, so I'll tell you because I do know how this worked for me. So when there's so many panhandlers in the area that I live in that I mean, all of Dallas has tons of panhandlers. So
Hmm.
anyway, I experienced the discomfort that you're talking about so many times. Now, I never had somebody prove to me that someone I gave money to really is a drug addict and really did use it for drugs.
It's quite an
But
experience, let me tell you.
bottom line, it kind of didn't matter because it just that I was experiencing discomfort over and over and over, whether I did give or whether I didn't. Because if I did give, then my thoughts went to, oh my God, did I just help somebody's drug habit? Or, am I helping them remain homeless because they're seeing that this is a profitable lifestyle? And these are all my judgments because I'm the one who's judging that using drugs is bad, and I'm the one who's saying that a homeless lifestyle is bad. And so these
Well,
are my thoughts.
are they judgments though, or are they selections? See, here's this is a really interesting point from my viewpoint because we go through life faced with a number of different kinds of contrasts. This is one kind, but there are a lot of them. And in each case, we get the opportunity to say, yes, I like that. No, I don't like that. That's a selection. Is that a judgment?
It is when you put your selection or preference upon somebody else.
I don't see myself putting my selection on somebody else in this case.
Well, okay, using the scenario that you had before, that you found out that you gave money to somebody that was a drug addict
Hmm.
and probably used the money for drugs. Is that the situation?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Okay. So why is that a problem? Why did that make you feel bad?
My initial reaction is I just don't want to just give money to somebody like that. I might want
What's
to help
wrong?
them
What's
out.
wrong with him using drugs? Why is that a problem for you? And the dead air listeners that you're hearing is Walt thinking.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. I'm trying to answer the question in the way that you're framing it. I'm not sure if I can answer it that way.
Well, what do you think about illegal drugs?
Well, I don't care about the illegality of drugs.
Okay, what do you think about drugs? I mean, if it made you feel bad to learn that this man used it for drugs, was it because his cardboard sign said, I'm hungry, I'm going to use the money for food, and he used it for drugs instead, and he lied to you?
I think it's that I don't like experiences that I had in the past with drugs, and I don't want to have anything to do with them again, and I don't want to be a part of having anything to do with them.
Okay. So you were going way beyond the fact that you gave him money, and you were putting all sorts of other meaning on your gesture of giving him money.
Well, I'm not sure if I'd call it other meaning, but that it's certainly meaning that's meaningful to me. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
anytime
So
that I'm
just
making
the
any kind of
gesture,
selection in the face of any kind of contrast, I'm doing it based on what's meaningful to me. That this seems to be very similar to that. It seems to be the same thing.
okay. But in the gesture of giving him money, did that feel good initially?
Initially, it felt good, yes.
Okay. And in the moment that you gave it to him, did you feel like he was going to put that money to a use that you approved of?
I don't think of it as approval. See, I understand where you're going with it, but that's really not the way I feel about it. I don't think of it as me approving of him. I think of it as
tell me what you feel about it.
I don't think it's me approving of him. I think it's me not liking drugs or me liking food. So I thought he was going to use it for food. That felt good to me. I like food too. I like to share the idea of having food. I want him to have food because I like food. I don't really want to help somebody else have drugs because I don't like drugs. It's not because I'm judging him in any way. I just don't like it.
So this took us down a very different path that I wasn't expecting.
Okay.
Although I already knew this was about you and not about him.
Mm-hmm. Well, sure, yeah, because it was my feeling.
So what's about you that it gives you a negative feeling is your work to resolve or find a way to release, because you've got a pocket of resistance in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that much I know. Yep.
Yeah. So it's not about this guy, and it's not about whether you think drugs are good or bad. For him, it was that you wanted nothing to do with it because the very thought that he used it for drugs brought up an issue for you about drugs that made you feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I know that's the way we usually frame things. I don't think that every time that I express something that I don't like something that we're talking about an issue. I really don't. The only way it ever. I don't think that every time that we say I do not select something that we are identifying an issue. I think there are many times where we're just saying I simply don't select that. It's not interesting to me. I'm not interested in that.
Which is fine. But when a negative emotion shows up, now there's something that you have resistance on.
So you're saying the negative emotion indicates that there's an issue?
Yes. Would you disagree?
Well,
I mean,
if that's the case,
might be a really big word, but here on our show, we talk about resistance all the time.
Well, we do, yeah.
And how to identify it.
Well,
and I'd say you just identified a pocket of resistance because it didn't feel good.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If that's the case, then I don't really see any situation under the way that we're defining our terms here, that it's possible to make a selection of no without there being an issue attached, because the selection of no invariably has a negative emotion attached, like, no, thank you, I don't really want that. That doesn't feel good to me. So I guess that makes it an issue every time.
I don't agree with that. I've said no and have felt good.
I have said no and felt good too, but I also knew when I was saying no that if I had gone at all down the road about the thing that I said no to, it would have felt bad. So to say that there was no negative emotion there is not really accurate. I may not have immediately felt negative emotion, but there is an emotional context there.
Okay, so somebody contacted me from LinkedIn the other day, and they rolled out this huge offering on a program that they wanted me to check out.
Okay.
And, he said, and can we talk by phone so I can discuss this with you? And I was not interested in what he offered.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, thank you.
Right.
So I said no,
mm-hmm.
but it did feel bad to me.
Mm-hmm.
I felt I was being totally honest and appropriate with both of them.
I agree.
Both of us.
Yeah, sure.
So, to legalistically say every time you say no to something, it feels bad, I would say that is not true.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh,
I said that I said that every time that you say no, there is a potential negative attachment to it. It doesn't mean you have to go down that road and feel it. It just means that it's there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be turning it away. You'd be saying, yes, I want that.
Okay, I guess I don't agree with that assessment or that thought process.
And I think the source of the agreement or disagreement here comes down to one thing: what are we feeling in the moment? You're looking at it in terms of what are we feeling in the moment, and that's certainly probably the best way to look at stuff. But I also know that I can end up in some way going down that rabbit trail, going down that pathway toward the no that I don't like, and suddenly I'm feeling the emotion. I don't think it's clear cut that every single time that I say no, I am certain that I'm staying in that positive place, because that's not necessarily going to happen. All it takes for me is just to go a little bit down that trail, and I start to feel the negative emotion.
What trail? I don't know what trail you're talking about.
The trail of experiencing the thing that I really don't want.
Well, you start focusing on that which you don't want, then of course you're going to feel negative.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, so I'm not sure that we're in an argument. You were just
I don't think we're really arguing.
something
No,
that I didn't quite understand.
I see it as refining the conversation. We're kind of splitting hairs in one sense, but
Okay.
I see it as refining the concept, and I think it's important. The reason I think it's important is, yes, there are a number of times when we're able to just simply say no, thank you, and we don't give any attention to it at all. So it always just feels good in that situation. But I think it's a mistake to say that that's always the experience. Sometimes we will make a decision to say, oh, no, thank you. But there's just a little piece of us that starts sliding down that trail toward the thing we don't want. Now, we just said, no, thank you. And in that moment, we felt good. And then we start to slide a little bit. Now,
okay. And that's exactly that. You have changed your thinking or what you're focusing on to something that doesn't feel good.
Right.
Okay. So it's funny that I said we'll eventually come around to it. It still comes down to our feelings. Every thought we think has an associated feeling to it.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. And so when I've given to somebody who's at a gas station and they, tell me their long story and I say no, I feel good about saying no because it didn't feel good to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else might ask me for money and I'll say, would $5 of gas help you? And they'll say, yes. I say, I'll come over to your pump and I'll swipe my card and I'll be happy to give you $5
mm-hmm.
worth of gas. And that makes me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I leave and get in my car and go, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. That was so stupid. Well, that's because now I have changed my thinking. My afterward thinking is different than my thinking when I said, yes, I'll be happy to give you this $5 worth of gas. So in the moment, how we think shifts how we feel. And so one experience, just like you had talked about before, you gave money to somebody, you felt good, then you learned later that he was really using it for drugs, and then you felt bad. It was because you changed your thinking. It wasn't because the experience changed or was different or that you should have done something different. It really comes down to you changed your point of attraction. You change what you were choosing to focus on in that given moment.
Yeah, I think that's true. And we have to discuss all these kinds of things in terms of instances because that's the only real way to make sense out of them in terms of how we express things verbally. But I also know, and this is why I was trying to express my confusion earlier. I also know that it's really rare for us to stay in one pure thought form and just stay there. We are constantly shifting thought forms. So does the thought process change? Yeah, moment by moment. I mean, there's nobody. I think actually the moment that we stop changing our thought process moment by moment is the moment that we're dead. We've moved on back into the non-physical and we're not hanging out in the physical anymore. That's just the nature of being in the physical realm.
So we have this continual changing thought process that goes on. And what's significant in this is how do we choose to respond? Like, I remember when I gave somebody $20 on the side of the road who was in trouble, and I gave him $20. And I felt really good about it. And as I was driving away, I started thinking about that family member of mine that I told you about and what that family member would have thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately it didn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went, oh, this doesn't feel good anymore. And I went, why on earth am I letting that family member's opinions of how to live my life make me feel bad? So I immediately pivoted and went to my thinking of it felt so good to gift this woman $20. And I started thinking about, well, what if I was in help or in need of help and on the side of the road? It was kind of an off the beaten path. And it's like the very fact that I drove by her, she was probably just thanking her lucky stars that someone showed up because it was not a path that many people would drive down. And it made me feel good for like 2 days. That was something I wanted to milk. I'm like, it felt good to be generous. Wow, I love this. I didn't realize how much giving up $20 would make me feel good. I'm not a hoarder of money by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm also like, I think of one of my sisters as like the most generous person on the planet. If she had $2 to her name, she'd give me $2 if I needed it and would start working on a campaign to get me more. Wouldn't worry about her own concerns. I mean, this is how generous she is. And I just started thinking about, wow, I wonder if this is how my sister feels. This is so cool. Well, no wonder she loves being generous because it feels so good. And I milked it for 2 days.
That's a good point, because certainly
And
that's giving you an insight to her perspective. And it sounds like it's a very reasonable connection. Like, yeah, that probably is her perspective to some significant degree if she's that generous.
but the truth is, the woman who I met on the side of the road, to which I gifted $20, that was her role in my experience. She just happened to be an object of somebody in need, giving me a point of decision to help or not to help. I made the choice to do so. And then that was all about me. It wasn't about her. It was all about me. Does
Well,
that make sense?
truthfully, everything is about me.
Yeah.
So, I
And
mean, it's not like it's a distinction to be made that, stuff is about other people. In all cases, every experience I have is about me.
right. And so if we go back to the topic, which has to do with people who choose to assume the victim role, that's all about them. I have lived the victim role. I'm not there anymore. I may have it in certain pockets of my life that I'm not yet aware of. But I guarantee you, if I find it, I will flick them away because I don't like feeling the role of victim. But when I was in the role of the victim, I was powerless. I was angry, but I was blaming everybody else for what wasn't working in my life. It was my job's fault. It was my boss's fault. It was my husband's fault. It was my mother's fault. It was my sister's fault. It was the cashier's fault. Everything that didn't go right, it was somebody else's fault. And it made me feel very powerless. And that's what victimization is really all about. It's all about feeling powerless. And learning how to assume the responsibility for my life and even the people I interact with, and even the people I interact with behaviors toward me and to me, when I was willing to take responsibility for everything that affects my life, I began to feel more powerful and I began to be powerful, and it started to change the responses that I had to people, places, and things. And so if somebody was acting a fool and was being rude and stupid and, just was saying all sorts of horrible things to me because maybe they thought I cut them off in traffic, even though in my mind I didn't, and they're giving me the finger and they're making a fool of themselves. In the past, I used to go, well, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything. What's your problem? And it would make me feel really bad. And it would set me on a negative course as I was heading off to work, and, I had a bad day. But that's not who I am anymore, because now if somebody's doing all that, I'm like, wow, they must be in a lot of pain, or they must feel that they're a victim because they thought that I victimized them, because they thought I cut them off. And you know what? Maybe I did, but I wasn't aware at the time. And all of a sudden the lane ran out and I had to do something, or I'd hit a brick wall. And they're all mad. And I'm thinking, we're both alive. It's all good. But but when I'm feeling good about whatever my thoughts are, that's me taking powerful control of owning my reality and knowing only I can make me feel good. And I'm not going to let this fool who's, giving me the finger and screaming obscenities at me make me feel bad, because that's about him. And I started to recognize that really victimhood is when you take all of your personal responsibility and you put it on someone else. And you don't even realize how much you're hurting yourself when you do it.
It's a fairly
But
frequent activity for sure, because, like you said, we don't realize that we're doing it. Most of the time when we're doing it, we don't even think we're doing it. It's probably about the last thought that occurs to us, really.
Exactly. And, I can tell you about somebody else that I know very well, that I've tried to help this person. It's a him.
Mm-hmm.
And on the surface, he says he wants help. I have expressed how his alcoholism is not helping them anything.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't even want to say he's an alcoholic because, oh, I'm not an alcoholic. I just drink beer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, but you drink beer to excess. You go into drunken stupors. You have blackouts. And you somehow for him in his own mind, because he doesn't drink hard alcohol, you know, he's not drinking gin or vodka or rum. He says, oh, I can't be an alcoholic. And
Yeah,
I'm
he's
like,
drawing the
okay,
line, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you're splitting hairs. You're playing the denial game. That's fine and dandy. But he doesn't even want to admit he's an alcoholic. But then when he becomes a diabetic, which is what happened, he's telling the doctor, well, I don't even eat sugar. And he doesn't tell the doctor how much beer he drinks.
Yeah, not realizing that one has to do with the other.
Yeah, and I mean, most people understand that alcohol turns into sugar in the bloodstream. And so he's filling his body with sugar. And so he doesn't understand why he's diabetic, but now he has to take insulin, and he's pissed off that he has to take insulin. That doesn't seem fair because he doesn't even understand how he became diabetic. And so when, you know, he's asking, I mean, he literally was asking me, like, how does all this stuff happen? And I'm like, I'll tell you, but I don't know that you're going to listen. Oh, no, I will, because I'm asking. Okay, fine. So I kind of give him a little bit of a science lesson about how the body works and food works and alcohol works and sugar works and diabetes works. And when it was all done, he went, no, I don't believe that. So even though he asks for help, he really doesn't want it because he's only asking for help that in his mind will fit into the small confines of what's acceptable to him.
Yeah.
Because, and here's the bottom line, because he doesn't want to take responsibility for his actions, his beliefs, his behaviors, what he puts into his body. He wants it to be something outside of himself. Like he wants to maybe learn that he was in a toxic area and it gave him this bizarre thing that affected his DNA.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, that would probably make him feel good.
Sure, yeah, because now it's no longer him.
Yeah, then he could go, see, it's this toxic dump. It's their fault. Let's go sue them.
Which is really a consummate statement of victimization or victimhood, shall we say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, most people who are what seems like a forever or a continual or a ongoing victim, what it's going to take for them to not be a victim is for them to be willing to look at their life and become responsible for the stuff that they've not liked. And I know that's kind of a scary proposition. Going from I'm not responsible for anything that happens and everything I don't like is someone else's fault, to shifting it to, oh, I am responsible, and even the stuff I don't like, I somehow brought that into my life. That there's a gap in there of where some people will never traverse. Some people will say, I'm willing to take ownership of this, this, and this, but not this, this, and this.
Yeah, right.
You know, and they do a cut and paste of what they're willing to actually be responsible for, but at least they're moving in the right direction. You know, if you never want to be in the role of the victim, take responsibility for everything in your life and be willing to make appropriate adjustments to feel good.
Well, I'm willing to take responsibility for the fact that we only have a minute and a half left, and I got to get a couple of announcements in there. One of which is, if you're not yet a subscriber, please do become a subscriber. The instructions are all on the homepage at loatoday-net. The second message is, if you are a subscriber and you're enjoying these, please help us promote it, because the promotion that all of the listeners who are helping out, the promotions that they're doing are working. They're making a difference. Since in the last 2.5, 3 months, we have literally doubled our average listenership per day in terms of the number of plays per day. And the average number of plays per episode is up around rough estimate about 80%. So it's really doing a big job. So please continue to share with other people that you're listening to loatoday-net, because that's how more and more people get their daily dose of happy. And with that, and 10 seconds left, I'm going to say, Wendy Dillard, how do we reach you?
They can find me at wendydillard.com.
And it's that simple. Wendy, it's been great. Thank you so much for the terrific, in-depth explanations about victimization. I hope it's been helpful to other people. I know it's been helpful to me.
Cool.
And we hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.